Le Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts is dedicated to preparing aspiring professionals in the areas of culinary arts, patisserie and baking, and hospitality and restaurant management.
Disaster Planning and Response Art Rescue is a first responder for the world of art, providing planning, packing, evacuation, conservation, and storage for all your treasured possessions. Paperweights are the crown jewels of glass artistry. You can discover both antique and modern paperweights at the L.H. Selman Gallery in Chicago's Fine Arts Building.
You've been a tame crowd through the beginning section of the evening, so hopefully we'll get sort of rowdy as the night goes on. If you don't know by now, my name is Elizabeth Alfano, and you are at Fear No Art Presents The Dinner Party. What we do here is I invite a celebrity chef, and he cooks a fantastic meal that we pair with beer or wine and a little bit of chocolate. I invite 3 artists. It's usually creatives, but sometimes it's an entrepreneur or an inventor, and over food and wine and some impromptu performances, the conversations flow. So hopefully you have your Twitter fingers ready, because a big part of the evening is that you join in with me and we have an ongoing dialogue. Everyone here should have an access code to the main stage wireless. So there's a little piece of paper and there's an access code, so you can hopefully get all hooked up, and you can Twitter to me at FearNoArtCHGO, hashtag the dinner party. Don't forget your hashtag. So something very exciting. This is a new concept, and the press has been really wonderful to us. We've also been picked up by TiVo, so if by chance you don't get to the main stage, you can always check us out on TiVo. Go to TiVo.com, look for their webcastings. Find us in the food and drink section. It's very exciting. It's a very hard process to get accepted by TiVo, so we're very exciting. 600,000 more people can see us, so that's kind of cool. Another really exciting development is that we are now broadcast live on Time Out Chicago. So welcome to everybody watching us on Time Out Chicago. Yay, Time Out Chicago. I love Time Out Chicago.
I'm so excited because I'm just a huge fan of their Consume eBlast newsletter that talks about food and drink, and I talk about food and drink, so I said, hey, what do you think? And they said, yes, let's stream live. So it's very exciting. Everyone at Time Out Chicago, same thing, get your Twitter fingers ready and be a part of the conversation. We have a great show for you tonight, but before I introduce my guests, let me just say how much I love my sponsors. Nothing happens without them. So I'd love to thank DPR Art Rescue, the very best art shipper, furniture conservator, and painting conservator in the land. Le Cordon Bleu, who could ask for anything better if you have a cooking show. And of course, the L.H. Selman Gallery of Fine Glass Paperweights for giving us our lovely centerpiece here. So it's wonderful to work with them. As well, Ken and Frank has been so kind to put me in touch with Design Fournier, which lent me this wonderful table. So great to work with them, 3 Arts, and the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation. Okay, I'm going to bring up my guests, but first, how do you like my hat?
Excuse me, you're off mic.
Am I not on? Can no one hear me?
I hear you. It's louder before.
actually, but if you are watching us from Chicago, then you know that we just finished Gospel Fest. How exciting is that? Our next guest is a Stellar Award nominee. That's a Gospel Award. So a Stellar Award nominee, and he was just performing at Gospel Fest, and he is a very dear person. So please welcome Marco the Poet. Marco the Poet. Marco the Poet. Okay. I'm a huge fan. So I'm going to sit down with my guests, but I would be remiss if I did not tell you that Paul Fehrenbach is making us some wonderful food, and if you're in the audience, you've already been nibbling on it. We're going to pair that food with Shiner beers and some Vosges chocolate at the very end. So we have a wonderful evening in store for you. Let's see what Paul Fehrenbach has to say about what we're eating.
Hi everybody, my name is Paul Fehrenbach. I'm the executive chef and owner of Big Jones here on Clark Street in Andersonville, and I'm really excited to be on the dinner party tonight. We're going to make a sampling of our charcuterie items that we do in-house. It's called boucherie in the Cajun tradition, and a sampling of our house pickles also. And so here's our board that we're going to serve on. We're going to start actually with our house-made capicola. This comes from the collar of a pig. It's dry cured for 6 weeks, smoked for a couple of days, and you get this really beautiful bright red color. And we really like having the fat back attached there. This is tasso, which is a type of ham, and it's a piece of lean trim that's dry rubbed with spices. It's not a very long cure, only about 3 to 4 days, and then it's smoked for 2 days. So it's very, very smoky, very intensely flavored. It's hard to find this stuff outside of South Louisiana. When we wanted to put it on the menu here at Big Jones, we had to learn how to make it ourselves. And all of these products that you're looking at here come into the restaurant as a whole pig every Wednesday, either from Slagle Family Farm or Gunthorpe Farm. And here we have an andouille. This is a big one. We make 40 to 50 pounds of andouille every week. And this is a very, very coarsely ground sausage, seasoned very heavily with cayenne pepper and garlic. We put them in natural beef casings, which are absolutely essential if you want an authentic andouille. It adds a really nice, grassy, barnyard aroma to the sausage. And you get this great marbling on the inside. This is only smoked for 6 to 8 hours. You get a really powerful smoky flavor. Blends really well with the garlic and the cayenne and the cure. And then here we have some Boudin Rouge. This stuff is very, very rare these days, but it's a blood sausage made in the Cajun tradition. And as I slice into it here, you can see we flecked it with fatback and rice they use as filler. This is related to the French Boudin Noir, which you find in the north of France. And they usually do theirs with bread, but in South Louisiana, the Cajuns have a lot of rice. They don't necessarily have a lot of bread, at least not in their traditional cooking. But back in the day, when they were more isolated culturally, rice was the starch that they had and what they usually cooked with. So that's flecked with rice. Really, really wonderful. And this here is head cheese. You wouldn't think of doing a Cajun charcuterie sampler without doing head cheese. And this is seasoned with port wine and Calvados. It's very simple. This has got a lot of collagen in it. It's really sticky and really unctuous. It's one of those things that if you like the taste of pork, you can take a little bite of this head cheese and you have a really nice, big, rich mouthful of pork. And then this is a pate we make from the fat back of the pig. This is also seasoned with port wine and Calvados. But the liver is blended with fat back for a milder taste and for a really, really creamy texture. And then we have our selection of pickles over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to select some accoutrements for each one of the items. And with the liver pate, my absolute favorite thing with liver is onions. So we have some pickled red onions here. And with the head cheese, we're going to do some of our bread and butter pickles. It's a really nice, it's a very bright and a little bit sweet pickle, and it goes really, really well. Helps cut some of the richness of that pork, but complements it also really well. And between the two of those, arguably the two richest parts of the plate, we're going to put some ramp pickles. With our andouille here, our favorite thing is chow chow. And we make a house-made chow chow with cabbage, sweet peppers, there's quite a bit of onion in it. And then we have our tasso here. And here we get a little bit different, but we're going to have some pimento cheese. Really, really nice with tasso. Gives a little rich creaminess to that spicy, pungent flavor you get from all the spices. With our Boudin Rouge, I like fruity flavors. We're going to serve it with some green strawberry pickles. Bet you haven't heard of those before. And the great thing about them is they taste just like strawberries, so they're really fruity, but they're also really tart, which kind of helps cut through. That Boudin Rouge is really rich stuff also. And so now we have our andouille, and we're going to serve that with pickle lily, which is a really nice, sweet green tomato relish. It's actually also really good as a substitute for that nuclear green relish on Chicago-style hot dogs. Okay, so now we have an individual accompaniment for each one of the items of charcuterie. We're going to put a couple of different pickles on there. We've got some okra, and we've got some pencil asparagus. Another one of my seasonal favorites, some fiddlehead ferns. So then we have a selection of breads, and we make all of our breads in-house. We have here some Benny crackers, some home-baked Abruzzi rye bread, brown bread, and a few sultana raisins to give it a little bit of sweetness. And then this is one of our favorite breads. It's Sally Lunn. It's a really soft, almost cake-like egg bread. Great with everything. I really, really like it with the tasso and with the Boudin Rouge. So there we have our charcuterie and pickle sampler, and we're really looking forward to serving this tonight.
Oh my word. Oh my word. Paul, if you could come out here, and hopefully we have a mic for you right there. Yay!
Is it on?
Okay, it's no wonder that Paul was just named 2012 the reader's most knowledgeable food historian. How much did you learn in that little clip?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
There we
you're
go,
on.
okay.
You're on.
Yeah, it's kind of an obscure category, but that's kind of the territory I like to
It's clearly
traverse.
your category because you are so knowledgeable.
Well, thank you. For me, the more I learn about this sort of thing, the more I realize that I really don't know very much.
Oh, isn't that funny? Yeah.
This is a very small. The charcuterie that you have on your plate there is actually a very small sampler of what you can find in all different parts of the South, different ethnic groups, different regions, different terrains. Depending on where you are, they'll do completely different things with whether it's a pig or wild game. And we can't really cook with truly wild game anymore. But if you look at the ancestral Cajun charcuterie, particularly things like venison, ducks. Now they have something called it's a swamp rat, some invasive species, and they'll actually go out there and get them. And this is one of the only wild games that you're actually allowed to sell.
Wait, you cook with swamp rat?
Yeah. I don't know.
Right? No, I'm not.
In Louisiana, it's actually legal to sell it. Like in most of the country, you go almost anywhere, and you can get a hunting license, and you can go and shoot an elk, or you can go and get yourself some squirrels or some rabbits or what have you. But it's illegal to sell them person to person, and it's certainly illegal for me to sell them in my restaurant.
Okay, so there are no squirrels. Just so we know
so there are no squirrels involved in your dinner tonight.
Yes.
You'll be glad to know.
Yes, yes. That's good. That's good thing to know.
But in the traditional Cajun charcuterie and what they would use to stock their larders, that sort of thing played a huge role because you're talking about a group of people that was incredibly poor. I mean, they were booted out of Canada, some 300 years ago by the British Crown, and they wound up basically in a swamp in South Louisiana and had to make a go of it.
Yeah.
And they really didn't have a lot of money, and you live off of the land, and you didn't go. There was no such thing as a jewel. They didn't even really have trading posts for much of the time that they were there. It was, you have the bayou, you have some land, there's a swamp, and you got to make a go of it. So they learned to use all of those things. You didn't go down to the trading post or to the Jewel Osco to buy dinner. You had to go out and catch it or shoot it or grow it, harvest it, forage it in the wild. That was how all of this stuff sort of evolved.
Well, you're leading me to my next big question on the table, but I know that you are still busy in the kitchen cooking for the entree, so
Yes.
I won't keep you from I know what you've got going, but you'll be back to talk to us more after the entree. And
I will be back to
we
talk
will-
more after.
Yes, you will. Yes, we'll pull you back in.
Thank you all. I'm really happy to be
Yes,
here tonight.
oh, thank you for coming. This is so exciting. And don't be afraid to eat.
Okay.
So everyone's always asking, well, how can we really eat and talk? And you'll have time. You can do it. Start picking away. I was on the shoot, of course, and it's really good. So go right ahead. But he's sort of segueing into what I wanted to talk to you guys about, because you all seem to come from, such different backgrounds, one would think off the top of your hat. But really, you have something really strong in common, and that's that in all of your work, you try to create community through your work. So of course you all have your own communities, right? So you're a dance ensemble, you have film crews, you're in a theater ensemble, but through your work you try to create community in those who see your work. So I'll start with Marco, because Marco and I have an interesting history of how we met. So I met Marco because I interviewed him for NPR, and I was working on a piece for NPR about art programs in homeless shelters for children, for youth. And Marco was teaching through a program called Unspoken Words, and he was teaching basically kids who are untethered. They have no community. This has all been broken for them. And Marco was trying to give them a sense of community through poetry, through history, through Ida B. Wells, through Wordsworth, through your passion. So I wonder if you could talk to me about that goal of trying to reach out and form community through your art.
Well, most of my passion, it comes from just being raised in Chicago housing. And
You came from Ida B. Wells,
yeah,
right?
I come from
That's
Ida B.
right?
Wells,
Yeah.
and it's just violence and gunshots. It was just full of all types of crazy things. Little kids just seeing crack bags on the ground. That was a part of the environment. So people didn't believe that you could break out of this box.
Right.
My grandmother, she had never been anywhere.
Right.
Outside of Arkansas, outside of Chicago. I had the opportunity to go to Bahamas, and she was just so excited, just because I was able to get away.
I'm excited by that
Yeah.
too, actually.
Yeah.
Bahamas isn't bad.
Yeah, but there are kids in Chicago who have never even been downtown.
Right.
There are kids who have never been exposed to anything. I had the privilege of going to high school with Jennifer Hudson. And Richard Nunley, who was our high school choir instructor, one of the biggest things that he ever did was expose us to greatness. Yeah, and it just means everything.
And that's what you were doing for those kids that day. You were exposing them, and they were soaking it up. Really, they were forming ties together through poetry that day. It was really moving for me, and I haven't forgotten it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay, so all this talk about how moving Marco is, how do you feel about performing?
Well, it was great. A lot of, well, you're talking about the Gospel Fest, right?
Well, okay, we can talk Gospel Fest, or you can perform, or you can do both.
Okay, it's whatever you want.
Okay, well, let's talk about Gospel Fest, because I know you performed at Gospel Fest, and
Yes, I did.
Regina did as well. We got
Okay.
a little sneak peek of
Wonderful.
crowns. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Gospel Fest was an experience. I'm an independent artist. Most of the musicians, what I do, I use my poetry and I do it to music. And this time, one of my musicians didn't even show up. So I had to create a band on the spot. But good thing is spoken word and it's spontaneous. But I was backstage just completely nervous. But it always works out.
It always works out.
Always
Isn't that true? Because I'm nervous here quite a bit, and it always works out. And you have been doing amazing, everyone here is doing amazing things, but you have recently gotten a CD out, is that right?
Yes, I have a CD. It's called King Solomon's Love. It's on iTunes. Yeah, get it.
Get it, yeah, get it. And you were nominated for a Stellar Award?
Yes, it was the first time the Stellar Awards acknowledged spoken word poetry. So it's like the first time. So I kind of made history, So yeah, for a little kid coming from Bronzeville, it just means everything. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, let's give everybody a taste for what you do.
Okay. All right.
And like he said, there's lots more on iTunes, and lots to check out.
This woman, this woman, this woman, this woman here. King Solomon said, don't awaken love before it's time. Don't rush to love. Let love rush to you. For my single people. You know, they say love is patient. Love is kind. Don't rush to love. Let love rush to you. This woman here has me getting spiritual reactions off her conversation. And that's funny because we're not even fornicating. I'm just amazed at all her godly revelation. When I see her, I see a gift to the nation. When I see her, I see God's most beautiful creation. I see prophecies of godly fantasies in her eyes. I see peaceful winds and calm tides, and I promise you, one day I was gazing, I could have sworn I saw Jesus the Christ walk by. And I know that she's human, but I feel like heaven when I'm with her. There's really no one word to fit her. And when it comes to the truth, there's really none more realer. Excuse my English, but my tongue gets captured as I walk down her green pastures. And every time I kiss her, my soul feels like it's been caught in the rapture. She reminds me of Ruth, because she's full of the truth, full of the stuff that bears fruit, gentle as a dove with the passion of a youth. And every time I hug her, I have to repent, because whatever this is she has, I know I'm not worthy of it. She fills my heart with conviction. Her sacrifices are a practical depiction of the crucifixion. This woman here, man, she fine even in the wintertime when spaghetti straps and Daisy Dukes out of season, and it's hard to expose your behind. I'm like her King Solomon and she's my Queen Sheba. We're not unequally yoked, man, she's a believer. Matter of fact, she's an overachiever, an interceder mixed with promise keeper. And when I'm weak, she's powerful enough to assume the role of leader. She's a book I'm interested in studying. I want to highlight her mind, dissect her content, make penetration with her intellect as our thoughts intersect. I want to touch her heart's biceps, caress her dialect. But the only problem is, I haven't even met her yet.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of tweet action, and you can understand why. So we have a tweet for Marco, and it's from Mingus Changes. Mingus Changes, good for you. You're very smart. You have just won 2 tickets to the next dinner party. So good for you. Very smart. You are a winner. So he or she is asking, what has inspired you in the past week? Because you're saying that this is kind of a spontaneous thing.
What has inspired me? Well, the spontaneity, not having a band inspired me to have confidence when stuff just goes out of whack. So that's what inspired me, you know. But beyond that, what inspires me is just knowing that there are kids every day that's getting shot on the south side of Chicago, you know, and so just coming from where I am, I care about that. You know, so what I've been doing, I have an organization, it's called the Speak Life Movement, and we use poetry and poets for activism. And so we speak on those things and we go into the schools. I developed a curriculum and I've been working with Dusable Museum. It's called I Paint Words. And so we go into the West Side. You know, I've gone to the West Side and just almost got shot going on the West Side. You know, so you almost have to put your life at stake just to teach.
Yeah, right.
And there was a day that they held the kids back because they were shooting outside. Yeah, and so it means the world when you have these kids coming to an after-school program, and you know, one girl, she just cried because someone talked about her mother. But these kids struggle with all types of issues, you know, drug addiction, you know, everything that they're experiencing. You know, so it just means the world to be able to go in and to teach them alliteration and metaphors and just using their words, and it gives them so much confidence, and it helps their self-esteem, and it helps their test scores and everything, you know. So it's a blessing. I'm glad I'm able to do it.
Yeah, well, his passion is convincing, is it not? Right, yeah, absolutely, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, my poor and wonderful Nicole, who is working on the slide projector, I always tell her, like, it's going to go in this order, and then I get to the show and I change it up. So, Nicole, I'm going to change things up. So I was going to start talking to Regina because sort of a nice segue, Gospel Fest to Gospel Fest, but I think there's maybe a nice segue here to what Steve does with the Interrupters. And so, again, you all create community in what you do. So Marco's trying to create community through his poetry, and you're doing so much leading up to Crowns, creating community everywhere. Steve is almost, and totally correct me if I'm wrong, but you're creating community through showing what it's like to not have community. And so it's in this showing an absence of community that you're trying to inspire community.
Well, yes and no.
Great.
First of all, I want to say I'm really glad he went first, so I got to eat.
Good, yes, and please eat and...
Excellent. I thought maybe you were going to make me sing for my food, because
That's another show.
you made him sing for his. It was beautiful. You know, I think like in a film like The Interrupters or other films that I've done here, centered here in Chicago, yes, in a film like Interrupters, you know, which is about urban violence in this city, much of what Marco has experienced and copes with on a regular basis, yes, there is this terrible thing, this terrible threat to community, right? But I think one of the things we really found in making the film is that despite it all, there is a community there, and there are people that care about that community and want that community to prosper and survive, and it's heroic, frankly, what people will do. And I hope that when you see a film like The Interrupters, you feel that it's not hopeless, because we didn't set out to make a film that painted the situation as hopeless. We tried to do a film that made you see heroic people in these communities doing something about their communities and having success.
So if I could ask for a clarification, when you say that you're seeing a community there, and there are these heroic actions, are you seeing community in the few people who are sort of stepping forth, or are you seeing community even where an outsider might see that there isn't one?
Yeah, no, I think it's both. I mean, I think it was really important to us in the film, like we bridged the seasons with these montages, for example. It was really important to us that you see in those montages the backbone of the community that's still there, that's still very much alive. I mean, I'll never forget, you know, some years ago, this goes back to Hoop Dreams, one of the fathers in Hoop Dreams, Bo Agee, of Arthur, he had a child by another relationship before marriage, and this kid was murdered. He was in the gangs and he was murdered. And so I went to the funeral, and it was in a church in Cabrini. And I went to the funeral, and in the balcony were all the gangbangers from this kid's gang. And on the main floor were all the backbone of the community. And I got there late, so I ended up in the balcony. But
Gangbanger you.
yeah, exactly. But I'll never forget the division in the church that day, and you could see that there was sort of a war, in a sense, for the heart of that community going on. But what I love about what the Interrupters do, and we hopefully show that in the film, is that they have not given up on the guys in the balcony.
Right, I see.
They haven't given up on them. They are trying to reach out to them and pull them back into, because one of the revelations of doing this film for me, as someone who didn't grow up in these communities, obviously, was realizing that those guys in the balcony don't want that either, really. They really don't want that. And so when you give people a chance and an opportunity and a way out, which is what Marco's doing.
Right.
Clearly. People will seize that opportunity when they feel like there's another way and that someone actually cares.
When there's a rope to grab.
Yeah.
This is nice. I think this is a nice time to show a film clip that we have. I'm going to give the lead into this clip. For any of you who haven't seen The Interrupters, we have Eddie Bocanegra, who did jail time for murder, if I'm not mistaken. And you can imagine what a treacherous time that was for him, and he still grapples with it. And he decided through Ceasefire to work with an art program to be teaching art in schools. And you're talking about reaching out and bringing people into the community. Eddie's doing this at a really young age, which of course makes so much sense, and you are too, trying to get kids when they're young. So if we could see that clip, that would be great.
Do you guys remember when we left off last week? We're working on our what? Backgrounds, right? It's about using your brush. Crisscrosses, C's. The Amnesty contacted Ceasefire. They were actually focusing after school about violence and how they could help the community and so forth.
I used a pencil to sketch it out and I shaded the background.
Shaded it, okay. And we're like, hey, what do you think about the idea of maybe introducing like maybe art for them to express themselves about violence? You see that, how I'm using the brush right there? And when I was in prison, painting was my form of dealing with my issues and my problems and really discovering myself. Now this one right here, I kind of really like this one. My past was building a name off violence and gangbanging. Now I'm building a name off my artwork. The idea behind this is that you got an angel and he finds himself in hell or whatever you want to call it. This one I really like because it's symbolic, something that I really feel. What's the one thing in your neighborhood that you wish people could focus on more to help out?
Spray painting.
Spray painting. What about you?
The shootings.
The shootings?
Because my mom's scared that there's gonna be a shooting going on me while I'm outside. I would want them to help with the shooting because that really bothers me. There was this one time when our neighbors got into a fight and I don't know what else happened, but somebody started shooting. And it really does.
And what you're doing right here, being part of this program, that's a great thing. Because it shows that you care and you want to do something about it.
Gut-wrenching. Gut-wrenching, right? Absolutely gut-wrenching. So, of course, we have a gazillion tweets coming in at the moment. I'm going to see if I can award 2 prizes at once. So one is from MH Mar, and one is from Digster71, and they have similar questions, so I'm going to award them both. Films from Kartemquin. So if you go to kartemquin.com, which is the wonderful organization that put out The Interrupters, you can pick any film you want. Of course you're going to pick The Interrupters, but just in case you picked anything else, you could, and we will send it to you. It is your gift. And so both are asking similar questions. You worked on The Interrupters where you saw a lot of gang violence, and I'm wondering, what did you learn there? What can we still learn about gang violence? So what did that film teach you? You were also getting tweets?
It taught me to turn off my phone, which I thought I did. Well, you know, I think some of what I learned I spoke about a moment ago. I think, you know, I think we too often think that that these communities are in profound despair and have given up, and they haven't. And I think that's a testament to their resilience, and it's a testament to their courage. And I think the other thing we learned, I mean, you know, repeatedly was that people want to be saved and can be saved. And the redemption aspect of what the Interrupters do as individuals, what brings them to this work was always profoundly moving, because Eddie spent 14 years in prison for retaliatory murder. He was in a gang, and he was a tough guy. But when you see him now, you can't believe that that's the same guy that did that. And one of the things you come to realize is that, and I think this was kind of an epiphany for us, was in a way, the Eddie you see now is the real Eddie. And the Eddie that was in the gangs, when you look at the pictures and he's puffing himself up and he's looking as tough as he can, that wasn't the real Eddie. And so we like to think, and in movies all the time, right, it's about someone made a big change. And in some ways, I think it's like Eddie and the other interrupters who followed, they found their way back to who they really are, more than that they made this profound change. It's a change. It is a profound change in a way, but what it is that they found themselves again, and that was pretty much an epiphany.
But hard to do that when you've got so much violence and so many things sort of keeping you from seeing a clear path.
Yeah, it is. Well, you know, a lot of times people will say, you know, sometimes it's conservatives. A lot of times it's conservatives, but
really?
They'll say things like, you know, people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they'll point to examples. They'll point to people like Marco, my guess is, and they'll point to people like the people in this film. And it's true. It is amazing what people have been able to do who have come from little or nothing and been able to achieve. It is amazing. Yes. But a lot of times what people forget is that a lot of times the people that are able to do that are extraordinary people. And like where I grew up and where I live and where my wife, who's here tonight, and where we raise our kids don't have to be extraordinary to be successful and to have a good life. They just have to be okay, really. Right. You know what I mean? And I think too often we forget that when we point to those examples, those great examples, is that not everybody can be extraordinary, and that's why, and so many people are lost in those communities. In Hoop Dreams, there was this kid that was a friend to Arthur, who was older than Arthur, and gave him a lot of good advice. He was in the drug game. He had taught himself to do architecture, drawings. He was phenomenal. He'd never had any formal training. Wow. That kid should be an architect. Instead, unfortunately, that kid is gone. I mean, he was lost some years after we finished the film to the streets. And that's a kid that if he'd grown up in Oak Park, where I live,
would have sailed, right, just would have gone straight to the top. Yeah. It's tricky. It's very tricky. It's interesting. Do you think that art has played a role for Eddie to, I mean, I see art as giving people community, that's, you know.
Absolutely.
I see it as giving people a sense of community and giving them something, like even all the public art that we have going on right now downtown. So we have Color Jam, and we have things going on at Navy Pier, big sculptures going up, and you know, even whether you like them or you don't, at least it gives you a dialogue, it gives you something to connect with your community, because I feel that our communities, all of them, not just the ones on the west side, but all of us are getting sort of separated through oddly technology and other things. So I wonder if you think art is what brought Eddie back.
Well, I think a lot of things brought Eddie back, but I think art definitely played a role, because when he got off to prison, he had a lot of time to ruminate and think, and he had this creative impulse, and he found a way to express it. And you look at his paintings, he's expressing what he went through. Right. I mean, they're very autobiographical, and so I think it gave him a way to express himself and to think about his life. And I mean, Marco's a better guy to answer this, I would think, because I mean, here's a living, breathing example right in front of us of an artist who.
What would you do without poetry? I mean, do you think you would have made it out of the projects without poetry?
Absolutely not.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely not. It was we hear it all the time when it comes to art. We say it's an outlet, but that's an understatement. If it wasn't for poetry, it was my way of crying.
Right.
You know, it's like tears on paper. Poetry was. Yeah. You know, writing songs and creating something, you know, putting all of that.
How did you find poetry?
I found it seeing my dad out the bedroom window and knowing where he was going. You know, knowing he was going to the drug house, and my friends coming back to tell me, you know, I saw your daddy at the crack house.
Right.
You know, that's how I found poetry. I found poetry knowing that my mother, she had a mental disorder. That's how I found that creative outlet.
Had to find it. Is
I
what
had
you're
to
saying.
find
You
it. It
had to
forced
find
me. It pushed me
forced
into
you to
that
find it.
direction.
Yeah, well, this is a little bit of an odd segue, but in Crowns, which you have been working on so hard and doing so much, it's all about, well, maybe tell people what it's about, since maybe some people don't know, and again, it opens this Saturday.
Yes, it's going up at the Goodman Theater June 30th, and it's about a young woman, 17-year-old girl. As I've come back to this piece, it's been 10 years since it was done at the Goodman Theater. I just moved to Chicago about a year and a half ago, and I wanted very much to have a connection to Chicago through this piece. So I did some reworking of the piece so that this young girl, who's 17 years old, is from Inglewood. Her brother is shot on the street. Her mother sends her down south to try and reclaim her life, refocus her life. Her grandmother takes her in and introduces her to these hat queens, meaning you own at least 100 hats. Each hat has a story about a wedding, a funeral, a baptism, a marker in a life. And we find that these women are sharing their lives with this young girl so that she knows that she's not alone in this journey, that we keep repeating all of these stories in our different lives, in different ways. So they give her a foundation in their history, in their stories, and in her history as an African American as well, so that they reclaim her, build her back up, root her so that she can grow up, and they send her back to Chicago. She sees Chicago anew, because a lot of times people don't go outside their neighborhood, don't go outside their block, and sometimes you have to just kind of shake them up, put them somewhere else so that they can get another perspective of the world and of themselves.
Right. Right. Well, you have, if you could talk to me a little bit about all the work that you've been doing leading up to Crown. So you've been really trying to create. So this woman refines community. She refines a foundation in the South. And you've been trying to do that in Chicago leading up to Crown.
Yes.
So you have been having poetry, right, and music and dance. Tell me about what you've been doing.
Yes, making different connections so that it's an event that happens on the Goodman stage, a theatrical piece that happens in the theater, but at the same time it's happening across the city, collaging different communities, bringing different communities together, and working with, for instance, Louder Than a Bomb, with young ladies between 17 and 21 years old to look at the piece, imagine themselves in Yolanda's shoes, and vice versa. And they created these beautiful spoken word pieces that I'm collaging into the show. So our Yolanda, it was trying to tap into the voices of the Yolandas across the city in Chicago and giving them a voice on the stage. So the young lady, 17 years old, Yolanda, is speaking their words on the stage of the Goodman. They'll also have an opportunity to do spoken word at the Goodman. It's to reach out to Columbia students as we're working on the dance pieces so that we workshopped with them, which was really incredible. It was to talk to different people across the city, people like Amina Matthews, who's in your show, as well as Pastor Corey Brooks, who took to the rooftop to protest the killing of the young people in his church, to reach out to different milliners that we have here, as well as hat wearers, different ties to the community, and have them have a voice through this production. It's to work with ETA, DeSalvo Museum, MCA, to have different collaborations, conversations, events happening.
I have a couple of tweets for you. It's like it's hard, right? Because my left hand keeps vibrating with all these questions for the table. So I have a couple of questions here, and I'm going to see if I can also bring these together. So C. Rife good for you. You've won 2 tickets to the Goodman Theater to see Crowns. Lucky for you. But also, we have to go see Crowns together, and so do we. Everybody, we're going to see Crowns, right? Yes, okay. It's a group effort. We're all going to see Crowns. But C. Reich, he or she has definitely won tickets. What part of your personal history influenced Crowns? Now, I know you wrote the screenplay, but you didn't write the original Crowns.
Well,
It's
it
an
was,
adaptation.
I was given a call by Emily Mann, who runs the theater in New Jersey, in Princeton, New Jersey, and she said there's this book coming out called Crowns. It was before it came out. It's a picture book. And she sent me the book, said, would you like to turn this into a theatrical piece? So I'm looking at this book and I'm going, oh, these women, the hats, the stories, and I'm looking at these women's faces and I'm going, I know each and every one of them. I'm from Dallas, Texas, they're from Darlington, South Carolina. And I'm going, I know each and every one of them from the women that helped to raise me. And I'd love to tell this story, is how it started. It was then when I was doing the research, because I've never been a big hat wearer.
You're kidding.
It was always to keep my head warm. So a little cap or skull cap. So I was telling my mother about the research I was doing, because I knew these hat queens, but never asked why, where it came from, why. And it is something that is part of African American church, woman covering her head, but also this is something that is the African in the African American. It is something that goes over the ocean, adorning oneself for worship in the different tribes, Yoruba religion, for instance. So I'm looking at all these ties from the African American church, from the tradition wearing hats to the music and the movement. Wonderful seeing you perform tonight. It was reminding me of the ties that bind, the ring shout that the African American church does in the Gullah Islands, Hilton Head area is absolutely tribal, counterclockwise in these polyrhythmical stomps and claps and expressions. So that music comes from Africa, the rhythms and the tunes of the African American church, married to the poetry of the Bible, started the spirituals, the gospels, that then has its arms and legs through rhythm and blues, starting with Phil Holler's blues, jazz, spoken word today, hip hop today, and the movement also from the tribal to the Lindy Hop through the Charleston through crumping today. You see those threads very clearly.
And they did a nice job of outlining that actually in your piece. Of outlining.
Absolutely.
And for those of you in Time Out Chicago who missed it, oh gosh, you have to get tickets next time, because your spoken word piece outlined the history of music, really. So it's wonderful.
Yes. So it was. I was sharing this research with my mom, and she took me to her closet. And she is a queen, but not a hat queen. She owned under 100 hats, but a lot of them.
She's got to keep working on that.
Yeah. So she was showing me, her closet with rows of hats, and each hat had a story about her life. And I'm spending this afternoon with my mother, and I'm learning about her, things I never knew. So it's not just about the expression, how you want to be seen. When you go to church and you're a maid or professor, and how you want to be seen, it's also about these stories that are collected under the brim. It's what I discovered in that afternoon. So I took that then to the writing of the piece. Oh, I was going, that's what it's about. So what she passed down to me were her stories and how she told me her stories in the writing of this piece. The first production then at the McCarter Theater, I bought my first real hat, which was a big brimmed hat with a lot of feathers on it. And that became the hat that I wore to my mother's funeral. So it started collecting my life. So that's what I brought to the piece.
So your hats tell you sort of where you were at a certain time.
Absolutely, yes.
They mark things for you. Well, you were talking a lot about music, and I wonder if this might be a good time to bring out some music. So we have a phenomenal sneak peek of what's going to happen in Crowns. Please let's bring out our wonderful gospel singer, and
Miss Sherry Addison.
Yes, who's wearing a lovely hat.
Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely, so lonely, and long for my heavenly home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is he. Oh, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. Oh, I sing because I'm happy, and yes, I sing because I am free. Oh, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches. Yes, I know he watches. I'm so glad I know he watches over me.
Wait, no, wait, come back. No, wait, come back. Come back. Come back. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You were fantastic. You were fantastic. Really, really, wow. Crowns opening on Saturday, June 30th. I didn't know that we were going to have church. So this is a bit of a pity, but this is our commercial break. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. If Nicole, I don't know if we're able to switch the order, but in theory, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk to Stephanie Paul. Let's see if we can do it.
Le Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts is dedicated to preparing aspiring professionals in the areas of culinary arts, patisserie and baking, and hospitality and restaurant management.
Disaster Planning and Response Art Rescue is a first responder for the world of art, providing planning, packing, evacuation, conservation, and storage for all your treasured possessions. Paperweights are the crown jewels of glass artistry. You can discover both antique and modern paperweights at the L.H. Selman Gallery in Chicago's Fine Arts Building.
commercial breaks is that you get to eat a little bit, which is good for us because I didn't realize that Paul was going to be giving us such huge and beautiful plates. So we've got some work to do. Well, so I guess I'm going to sort of start with where I started from the very beginning, which is...
How do I follow that up?
I know, it's impossible. That's why we gave the commercial break, to buffer you a little bit. Yeah, it was amazing. So you, I really think, bring community. I mean, music brings community, right? We just saw that here. I mean, how many of you hear gospel all the time in your life? I know I don't very much, with the exception of, okay, we just had Gospel Fest, but otherwise I don't get much gospel music in my life. And maybe some of you are the same, I don't know. And so, but here we just had this instant sort of all connection by following her, Sherry. So I feel that music does that. And as we all saw at the beginning of today, your beats it's so life-affirming for me, what you do.
Awesome.
So yes, it is very awesome. And I wonder if you guys set out to do that, set out to sort of create community through your work.
Well,
and everyone join in because you all kind of do that in your work.
I mean, rhythm and music inherently is so community based, and though there was a component of our set that involved like words, I mean, you didn't need to understand what he was saying. You didn't need to understand what she was singing to feel the emotion, to feel the conviction. And for us, it's just about being committed 100% and being passionate about what we do. Be it trying to portray like just genuine happiness. Like the first piece we did, it's just like, here we are in a space and we're 6 people that love performing together, and our job is to share that with you and hope that you enjoy it and give us something back. Like sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes there's a deeper message and we're trying to like dig through some like kind of crazy territory. But for us, it's just, you know, the foundation of Be The Groove is all rooted in using the body as an instrument. And you know, we were talking before about like going into communities, like a community like where you grew up, and I was during the commercial break, I was saying how we just went out and did a 4-week residency in Bronzeville. And yeah, we did. And it was really awesome. And you know, in communities like that, it's so important to go in like, it's easy to go in and go, oh my God, this is going to be hard. But when you go in with that mentality, you've
already lost
you've failed,
it, right?
and you've done a complete disservice to them, because it's like you're not even giving them a chance to show how awesome they are. You're just coming in with stereotypes. So for us, it's about, you know, not only giving them a platform to share their voice, but to go in and let them know that instantly we believe that they have a voice to share. Right. And it was awesome. And the successes in those communities when we can get to them are amazing. And you know, we had a kid who, I didn't get it, he had his head down the whole time and he was really timid, and I was like, dude, come on, you got something in you that you need to share. And the teacher like came to me and told me that he had been shot in the finger like recently, and I couldn't understand why he had to go through that. So like for me, my whole goal that day was like, just get that kid to like lift his head up confidently and to look me in the eyes. And I just wanted him to know that like, no matter what he's going through, doesn't matter what community he lives in, that I believe in what he has to offer. And by the end of the day, like he was hurting, but his head was up and he was smiling. And that for me that was my definition of success in that moment. I was like, awesome. You can leave knowing that you had a good hour. That's great. I'm happy that I was able to share that with you.
Well, I'm interested in, you're all going into different communities that maybe are hurting in some way. And I always feel that a very commonality among all people, really, in all communities, is that they just need to be valued. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. And so I'm wondering if, you know, music is a real easy way to do that, because not everyone can express. We all know this, right? We've all been in relationships that have not gone well. So you know it's not easy to express things sometimes. And music is easier in a way. It's an easier way to connect to people than sometimes just words or having to express yourself.
Well, sometimes. The reason why we enjoy body percussion so much, and like if we go into a school for a workshop, if we go like just for like one workshop, we're always gonna do body percussion instead of like drumming, because we want them to leave with a skill that they can take anywhere. It's like, go home, show your mom, show your dad, or whoever you live with, that you learn how to clap in time. Awesome. You know, take that with you, because that's with you everywhere. And even if they are disabled in some way, perhaps they have their voice, you know, perhaps they can beatbox. And that's why body percussion is so exciting to us, because it's something we can take in so many different communities, in all communities, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can express yourself musically in one way or another.
Well, I have a tweet for you, but
awesome.
Since you've just said that in any community, anyone can do it.
Okay, I did.
So you guys can do it, because she just said anybody can do it. And I know you're all white, but it's okay. You can still all do it. And nobody has to stand up. I'm not going to embarrass anybody.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Everybody can stay seated.
Okay.
So I interviewed her for Fear No Art about a year and a half ago.
She did.
And she gave me the very basics.
Okay.
And I wildly embarrassed myself, but it really didn't matter because it was so much fun.
That's
and
the
it
key.
is life affirming. So how about a little lesson?
Okay, we'll do a little call and response. I'll have to get
a call and response. I'm ready.
I would say rule number 1, there's really only one rule.
Okay.
Just have fun. Just believe in yourself. I believe in you. And rule number 2 is...
You can take the stage.
I will take the stage, thank you. Rule number 2, just try and stay in time. And if you don't, just put a smile on your face. So I'm gonna play a beat, and then you'll play it back. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, there was choreography to that. I hope you picked up on that. All right, we'll do a few more. That's right, rhythm can be silent. All right, I think I'm done.
Thank you to the audience for appeasing me. That stuff makes me really happy.
You know, I'm here for you.
It really does. I remember it from when I interviewed you a year and a half ago, and I'll just repeat myself. It is so life-affirming to me. So really, thank you.
Well, that's
for
why
that.
we do it. We love it.
Yes. Yes. Well, okay. So you've been working really hard, snapping your fingers. That means maybe you're hungry. Maybe you've worked up an appetite. Should we see what Paul has in store for us for our entrees? Let's check it out and see what Paul's got to say. Oh,
there I am.
Well, I have a tweet for you. I'll come back.
And now we're going to make the gumbo. We're going to start the roux, and I have some a mixture of oil and chicken fat actually that I've heated, and it's really, really hot, just about to start smoking. And we're going to add some flour, and this is one of the reasons you've got to be really into gumbo to make it. It's a lot of splattering, really hot stuff. And then this is going to cook for, depending on the weather, depending on the heat, anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes until it's really, really dark brown. So we've been cooking for about 45, 50 minutes here, and we're now really nice dark. I usually look for like a bittersweet chocolate color. And this is where it gets to be a lot of fun. I have our Holy Trinity here. We're going to add some onion. Always watch out for splatter. This stuff is, we're at about 650 degrees right now in this pot. So always stand back. So we got our onion, our green bell pepper, and some diced celery. And we're just going to cook these together for, just about 5 or 10 minutes till the whole thing is jet black and really aromatic. Then once we've sweated the vegetables real good, We're going to turn off the heat, and we're going to start blending some seasonings into the roux. Crystal hot sauce for real Louisianans. No need to be shy. This is almost like a Cajun style, like you'd find if you go west of New Orleans to like Lafayette or Henderson area. They tend to make their roux a lot darker than in New Orleans. Usually you'll find a roux a little bit lighter than this. We're going to put in quite a bit of Cajun seasoning. We blend this ourselves in-house. There's quite a bit of paprika in there. There's garlic, onion, quite a bit of thyme. We've also got basil and oregano in there. And the proportions are a little bit different whether you're doing it for meat or seafood. We usually use a meat blend for our gumbo because it's mostly chicken and sausage that we put in here. And then that's going to be good for a minute. Okay, so our roux's ready, and we've put it into a big pot where we can finish our gumbo. And what I have here is some chicken stock. And what we do is we separate the meat and the bones from the chickens, and then we make a stock with the bones. Now we're going to go ahead and add all of the meat from 6 chickens for one batch. We do this about 3 times a week. And then scraps from ham, and we make all of our own hams in-house as well from our pigs. We get a pig every week from Slagle Family Farm or Gunthorpe. And the hams we cure for 6 weeks before we smoke them for 2 days. And finally we have some more of our house andouille that we've roasted in the oven for a little while to get them nice and brown with some roasty, toasty flavors with the sausage. And then we'll put in a handful of bay leaves. And we're going to bring this to a boil and then simmer it for about 30 minutes. So I have a nice dark Cajun style chicken, ham and sausage gumbo. We'll top it with a little aromatic rice. And always with your gumbo, a little green onion. And there we have it, a beautiful Cajun style gumbo. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for the dinner party. We'd love to see you at Big Jones sometime. We're located at 5347 North Clark Street in Andersonville. Laissez bon temps brûler.
Of the evening that we've just had a tremendous response to this concept. You know, food and art, it's hard to go wrong. So we've had so many people respond for tonight that our chef's just a tiny bit backed up, which is good because I forgot to ask a tweet to Stephanie. So for all of you watching on Time Out Chicago, we're all going to have gumbo. The audience is getting gumbo right now, so next time you can buy tickets and be a part of it. Okay, so I have one for Stephanie. What is the earliest memory of rhythm touching your life, and how did it influence you?
My father. My father's a Haitian music producer.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
You know, I'm here to drop some knowledge. Yeah, so I grew up with music in the house from a very young age. Like, the joke was that we could tell from like 2 blocks away if my dad was home, because we could hear the music, because he listened to it so loud. And it wasn't until as I got older, that I realized just how much that he did for me, just exposing me to music at a young age. When I was young, that CD service BMG came out, and then you could send. Do you guys remember that? You could send in for CDs, and I was the only elementary school kid that was I just got 10 new CDs because my dad said I can. You know, I just always had music. It's just so.
So it's naturally a part of your life because you got it young and early on.
Yeah, I was really lucky. My parents have never once questioned my career choice.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. My dad couldn't get away with it.
Right, of course, yeah, he's not allowed. But that makes a big difference, supporting you from early on. Yeah. So I just want to tell this person, let me find the right tweet, I've got so many. Lynn Liston, you want a Be The Groove t-shirt.
Oh, very exciting.
And it's very exciting because they don't give them out to too many people.
We don't.
So
we make people buy them, but you get it for free.
So this is good. Finally, I mean, I warned everybody at the beginning, like, try to jump in. We'll try to make this a dialogue. But of course, it's hard, right? Because I want to talk to each person individually. But now we've kind of got everybody's story out there. So while the chef is coming with some food, I'll ask you guys, how do you feel about creating community? Do you feel that you do that? Is that one of the driving factors for your work? Anybody?
I enjoy creating community. I think one of the things I love about theater, about the arts, it does bring people together. It comes from the basic, where it comes from, people gathering around the fire during harvest time and sharing their lives. Right. That we have these things in common, that we're not so separate, that we can share, and that's also a part of building as well.
Right, and I worry that we're getting away from that. Just because online, I don't know, there's a veil to it that maybe we're not really ourselves, or it's
Well, I think also in this country, and in a lot of countries really, it's sort of like we are so separated in other ways too, not just technologically, but by race, class. And, you know, it's funny, I mean, it's amazing how little we know about each other's lives, the particulars of them, if we don't come from that community. But the other thing that's kind of amazing is it's amazing how little we realize we have in common with each other. You know, I've had people say to me after seeing a film, like, wow, I had no idea that, you know, African American mothers wanted the same things for their kids that I do. And on the one hand, you're like, well, I'm glad you got that from the film. On the other hand, it's like, why would you not think that, right?
Yeah, well, like Regina was saying, I do think that art is this possibility for us to open dialogues again. And again, just because I'm writing this thing for the Huffington Post right now, so it's top of mind for me.
Right now?
Right now, right now, right. And you thought I was tweeting, but actually I was writing that article. And so, you know.
I guess we're not very interesting dinner companions.
Sorry.
That's what I figure, I guess.
I did want to ask, how do you choose your subject matters for your documentaries?
Well, you know, I've done a diverse number of films by now on a lot of different subject matter, but I think that a couple of things sort of thread through them all. One is, it's usually something that bothers me that I don't feel like I understand. And I'm bothered by my lack of understanding, or, you know, so for instance, with this most recent film with The Interrupters, this issue of urban violence, I'd read about it daily in the paper, and you can't get away from it. And I felt so helpless, and I felt hopeless about it. And because two people that were very prominent part of Hoop Dreams many, many years ago had since been murdered, and I had seen what it had done to their families, secondhand, of course, but seen that. It was something that kind of haunted me, I think, and so I wanted to do it. And I think, so a lot of times there's that aspect to it, but then the other part of it is that I find myself attracted to people's stories who tend to be on the fringe of society in some fashion. Not always economically or racially, but just, and they're usually people that don't think that their lives have anything to say to us, you know? And I find myself attracted to people whose lives and stories I think have a lot to say, but just not in the way the culture tends to think. You know, they're not famous. They're not in some ways. A lot of times they're not accomplished. They're just people who are dealing with life day in and day out, and what their lives are about larger issues that I think, you know, we don't make enough. We don't talk about enough.
And it should be said that Cartemquin is really a supporter of this kind of film.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're really behind the socially conscious.
They're like they're an institution here in Chicago. I mean, they've been around since
1966.
1966, which, believe it or not, was before I got here. But it just was. They've been making incredible films for 45 years. Right. 46 years, 40, yeah.
Do you start out thinking you know what the story is and you're surprised by it somewhere in the middle?
You know, that's a really good question. I think I always start out thinking I know what the film's going to be about and an idea about what the story is going to be, but if it's at all going to be an interesting film, it changes, and it's always more interesting than my imagination of what it would be. And it really is this discovery. You know, I think the best films, at least in documentary, and I think it's probably true from your work in fiction, there's some aspect of discovery that goes on along the way, right? If it were just perfect on the page of a script, or it's like, well, what's the point? I mean, what's the point of doing it if it's so perfect already, you know? And so I think there's that aspect, right? I mean, how does this translate? What I do is mostly in documentary. How does it translate to the work that you do as an actor?
In acting, I'm given a role. So for instance, with the unit, I came in and...
We've got some pictures of her on the unit, too.
Oh, dear.
Yes, such fans of the unit, really, and your work on the unit.
You have all these pictures of me with hair.
Sorry, I guess, sorry.
No, just kidding. But I went in, and that was a piece that was written by David Mamet. And I'm coming in with probably 4 pages, and that's the character. That's all I know about the character going in for the audition. So I have to kind of build my own history so that I can figure out how she says things. So with that, I get the part. And then we don't know if the show's going to go on for a year, or they have maybe a year arc, and then they have to figure out as we go along over the next years what's going to happen to the character. You try and stay true to who the character is in terms of building these plot lines, but the actor doesn't have a clue what they're going to be saying from one day to the next. And I find that that's really interesting. I think with characters like Molly Blaine, or with I'll Fly Away, which was the first television series I did, it was a great discovery finding this woman's journey. And I think particularly with I'll Fly Away, it was pretty amazing. It went along with social lines, political lines, personal lines, in terms of building this woman who one at first sees as the African-American woman made. And what they did, I thought, was really incredible in layering this woman so that you see her as a mother. You see her not just as hands in this household. You see her as a daughter. You see her as part of community. And then you see her building a social consciousness, a political consciousness over the 2 years that we did that series. So that's pretty incredible when you have opportunities like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the most amazing drama going on in general these days, at least in American filmmaking, is in television, because the depth that you're allowed to reach for as a character, and really, I feel the kind of depth there that I observed when I make films about real people. I feel it so much in some of the dramatic series that we make here, whereas it seems like it gets harder and harder in Hollywood to get to that place.
And it's wonderful that we have these opportunities now that you can be placed anywhere and you can create your own. I think this is a really great time for independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, though, from a film background, that you're finding...
I'm not talking about documentary. I'm talking about...
Yes, right. Okay.
I think we're in a golden age for documentary. I think there's so much incredible work being done.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, like, when has your dad seen you in your current incarnation, and when did he first see the performance? And is he like the toughest critic, or is he like just so supportive because it's...
Oh, he's not a tough critic. His mind always goes to, we need to take you to Haiti, and you need to work with this artist, and you need to do this. The people need to... My dad doesn't talk like that at all, actually. At all. But that's what it sounds like to me, because he's just like rattling off ideas. He's like not, oddly enough, he's not critical. He's just so excited.
That's
like
great.
He'll call and be like, you still doing that thing? You're making money? You're still doing that thing?
Such a dad.
I'm like, yeah, I'm still doing that thing. All right, cool. You should work with this artist. I mean, that's every conversation. My dad's hilarious. But yeah.
I'll have to have him on the show.
Oh God. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's super supportive, and yeah, he just gets excited and comes up with ideas, and it's cool. I'm lucky in that sense. Like, I know that it could have been a lot harder, so I'm very fortunate.
I want to ask this one tweet because it's so good, and I know we have Paul who's going to talk to us about his food, which looks fantastic in just 1 second. But CQSTBIL, you are fantastic, and you've just won a Le Cordon Bleu cookbook, so I'll be sure to get that to you. Wait a minute, now I'm confused in my tweets. I've got too many to follow. So wait, I'm sorry, I take that back.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't know if you can do that.
I can do that, and you know why I can't do that? Because that person is asking a question for Paul, and so you've just won 2 tickets to Big Jones.
Oh, that's
Unless
pretty
you
awesome.
want it and you want a cookbook. But I have to come back to that person. Oh my word. Somebody is very moved. Here we go. Yes, no, it is CQS. I'm not very good with technology. Have we realized this yet? So CQSTBIL is asking, I'm moved. The power of telling stories connects the work of each of you. How did you discover the power of story? And I think that's a common line through you all. Marco, I'll start with you, and how did you discover the power of story?
Well, in the church, we call it a testimony. And and what you go through, it shapes you and it shapes your story. In most of my writing, it was always using something that caused me to cry, something that caused me to want to fight and strive for better. Right. You know, so I have a poem that's called White Stuff. And it's because as a child, I didn't know what crack cocaine was. You know, it was just white stuff. And I had to use the washroom, and I bust in, you know, in the bathroom, and I saw my father trying to hide some white stuff. And, you know, so it's amazing what young kids are exposed to. So things like that, it shapes your story. And so my story, unfortunately, it was birthed in a lot of pain and a lot of, you know, but I used the art to, you know, to express, and it had a therapeutic element to it. So, yeah, that's how.
Yeah, because again, back to what we were talking about before, there's no choice. That was the story that you needed to get out and purge. But sort of what you guys were saying, the real stories are the ones that you discover along the way that mean something to you, that you want to know more about, or that you feel that there's a sense of discovery, some arc, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, and I think I feel like for me, the interesting thing about the making of film, because I've done some films that have taken years to make, and I think when it's best, it's sort of like at the end of the process, the film that you watch is a distillation of the sort of journey that I traveled, in a sense. It's sort of like, so if the film is constructed true to that, then you will be as surprised or taken aback or have your expectations turned as I did in making it, because I'm constantly I'm constantly making assumptions, and then having them changed. And I think that that's what's it's wonderful. I keep learning that lesson every time I make a film. I mean, when I was doing Hoop Dreams, looking at the mothers of these 2 young men, I sort of quickly said, oh, we've got this strong sort of, inner city mother, and that's a certain kind of image that we have of that person. But the more time we spent there making the film, they became more than just these sort of symbols. They became 3-dimensional human beings. And I think that's one of the things that spending, the time in a film and telling a story, it's no longer a snapshot. It's a true story and a portrait.
And it must be hard for you to divorce yourself a little bit from, you get so into your story.
The best film experiences, you don't even want them to end. You feel like you're living inside a novel, and you just want to keep
Turning the pages.
Yes.
Turning the pages. Well, I don't want my gumbo to get cold, so I'm going to see if we can find Paul. Is he around? Do we have him? Is he still slaving in the kitchen for our dinner? You guys have already had your
There
gumbo,
he is.
right? Yes, okay, good. Oh, there he is! Oh, there he is! Okay. So I want to read something directly from Paul's bio. Okay, so we're talking about community. And food is the ultimate start of any community, right? It's the basics. It connects people to earth to animals, which is the basic of where we live. So let's look at this. This is directly from Paul's bio. It will make you love him. Paul Fehrenbach is executive chef and co-owner of Big Jones. Throughout his career, Paul has supported farm-to-table and slow food movements. I do what I do because I see nutrition, sustainability, and humane treatment of farm animals become the standard by which we judge food. Not cheap price, not industrial consistency, and not marketing dollars spent. We can all eat better by treating the land and our animal friends better. Is that smart? Isn't that smart?
Thank you.
I'm so happy to, okay, so I should tell people that I don't eat meat, and I am a very strict non-eater of meat unless I know that the animals have been treated humanely. And so we only have chefs on the dinner party where they believe in this sort of triangle effect of plants, animals, people all being connected, and therefore, you know, what sort of person would treat where they live and what they eat poorly? That's like treating yourself poorly. And so anyways, I want to thank you for that, and that's really important to me. Have we all loved our gumbo? Yes. Okay, so here's my question for Paul, and I have a tweet for you too, but here's my question for Paul. So we're talking about community. Here's one community I do not want to be a part of. You are open 7 days a week. You serve lunch and dinner twice a day. They never close. A restaurant is just one industry I don't want to work in. How do you do it?
Well, it helps if you love what you're doing.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes. And you do, clearly.
You know, I get up in the morning and I look forward to what I'm going to be doing when I get to work. So, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be in the position now where I run the business and I have about 25 employees, which is fun also to have that many relationships in your business. But I get to sort of decide what I want to do. So, you know, if I feel like making pie today, I'm gonna go to work and make pie. And you guys can chop the vegetables and do all the boring stuff over there.
Well, and so that is my tweet for you. Clarabelle728 has just won dinner for two at Big Jones. And my tweet from Clarabelle728 is, what is your favorite meal to make for yourself?
I eat gumbo probably 5 days a week.
You do? Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of gumbo.
You know, probably about 8-10 ounces at a time. So, you know, more than a quart a week, yeah.
Well, that's another question I have for chefs. Do you ever get tired of food? I mean, it's just around you all the time. Do you ever feel like, I can't do it?
No. No, when you really love something and something's close to you, it's like it's just hard to grow tired of it.
Yes.
People ask me about the music we play in the restaurant too.
Yes. Do you ever get tired of that?
And no, we have, I'm a huge Curtis Mayfield fan, and everything, the Curtis records, all that stuff. And I could, be working in the dining room one night, out with my customers, and you hear something like from the record Roots. And it just makes me want to go, and maybe the 6th or 7th time I've heard it that week, and I'll just go home and I want to listen to that same record.
Wow.
You just never get tired of that stuff. It just
stuff.
becomes part of you. So.
Right. And tell me how many years Big Jones has been on the map?
We've been there since April of 2008, so a little over 4 years.
And hard for a restaurant. Restaurants kind of have a turnover of a 2-year. Another reason why this community, I think, would be hard to work in. It has a heavy turnover, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most restaurants that close, I think, close for reasons other than, I think there's a lot of statistics that say, don't open a restaurant because, the failure rates are so high. But, the fact is, it's like any other business. A restaurant's much more likely to close because, there's a partnership dispute, breakup, or somebody's, needs change. They get bored with it. Or, I've been doing it for, in the restaurant business for more than 25 years. So I love it, and with as much experience as I have, getting kind of steering the restaurant through the opening stages, in the middle of the recession was a challenge that I'd never really had before. But that's, that said, once you get through it, I mean, every day I'm doing something that I love, so it's not something that I plan on stopping doing.
Right.
So I think that, there are certainly a lot of statistics out there about restaurants turning over, but that doesn't apply to me.
How many of you have eaten at Big Jones? Yeah, so good, oh good. So you know what a tiny, intimate, sweet atmosphere it has. I mean, you can seat about, what, 60? No.
There's about 60 in the main dining room.
About 60 in the main dining room. So a really intimate, sweet atmosphere that it has. You really feel that you're at home. And, this is why I picked your restaurant in conjunction with Crowns, this southern food and just this intimate atmosphere there. So hopefully everyone, we should actually go to Crowns and then go to Big Jones. We can all go together. So I've babbled on too long. I usually open the floor up to questions to the audience. I'm not going to do that tonight because I've gone a little bit over, but we're all going to be here and we're going to funnel out into the crowd, so stop us and ask questions and stay and talk to us. I want to thank my incredible team and the main stage. I have so many people to thank. Let me see if I can do it really fast. Tim Barron, David Gaffney, Nicole Nelson, Ben Kolek, Ken Karch, Ali Drum, oh my God, Linda Olatunde, Sawyer Lair, a bunch of interns whom I love. And I know I forgot someone, and I'm very sorry. I love the main stage. Thank you all for coming. We're going to be here. Thank you, Time Out Chicago, for watching us stream live.